We're going to look at some new tools. We're going to look at the brush tool. If you don't have this palette, what you can do is go to Window, then open up Brushes. Inside of this palette, you have it's kind of like a brush history. So any brush that you use, the kind of brush that you use will end up inside this brush list. Right now, these are just kind of default brushes that you can quickly select. Here, these are different brush tips that are built in. But what we're going to do is we're going to open up the brush library. So in the hamburger menu, at the top right, we have Open Brush Library. And here we have these different brush packages. I'm going to go ahead and open up Artistic, and then I'm going to let's do Watercolor. Okay, so now I have these different watercolor brushes. So I'm going to select to this one. And now I want to change the size of my brush. To do that, you have your there we go. Okay, so we have our stroke. And that'll change the thickness of, I guess, your brush stroke. If you hold the Shift key down, it'll give you a nice straight line, side to side, or up, down. This is why it helps to use the tablet, because you can get more gestural lines as opposed to using the mouse. Let me go ahead and open up another brush library. Let's go into this grunge pack. So let me point this out. Okay, so here, if I do Command Y, we can see my path. And this is actually what your brush stroke is traveling on. It's traveling on this line. So I'm going to hit Command Y again. I'm going to get the Move tool, because now we can grab our brush stroke and move that around. We can change its direction, stretch it out, make it thinner. We can also go into another tool, and we want, where is it? The Width tool. So if we get the Width tool, we can change the variation of line. And what you do is you just hover over the line, and you'll get a plus sign, and that'll allow you to add a point that you can now adjust and fine-tune. The other thing that's really cool about the brush is, say you don't like this quality. Oops. Keep the stroke to 1 point. Okay, so say you don't like this quality and you want to have a different texture. Well, all you have to do is just highlight your path, open up another library. Let's try artistic ink. And now you can just change the line quality by selecting another texture. Color, you're going to use the stroke. However, for this project, it's just black and white, so you don't really have to worry about color. But just to demonstrate how color works, you would be using the stroke and not the fill. Okay. So this is the brush tool, and that's just B on your keyboard to access it. The other tool that's in there is the blob brush. The blob brush functions closer to how a brush functions inside of Photoshop, in that you have more of a sort of direct control relationship with how you can make the brush, wider or more narrow in the stroke. So on your keyboard, you have your bracket keys. Those bracket keys are located between the P and the backslash key on your keyboard. So left bracket will make the brush smaller. As you can see, my brush cursor is shrinking. And then right bracket will make the brush larger. So right now I have no fill. And here's the difference between the regular brush tool, which is the first tool that we used, and the blob brush, which is the tool we have right now, is that the blob brush actually uses both a fill and a stroke. So I'm going to give myself a fill. And just for demo's sake, I'm going to use color. So I'm going to use blue fill, and I'll use a red stroke. Let me just change that again. Blue, and we'll do a red stroke. So what the blob brush does is it gives you both a fill and a stroke. If I go into outline mode, we can see that though these have mass and they appear to be filled because of their mass and volume, when we look at the actual structure of what is creating them, and we look at the path, we can see that the blob brush is giving us a closed shape, whereas the regular brush tool is just giving us a single path line. Let me go back into regular mode. But this is what's cool about the blob brush. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the stroke. I'm just going to make this black. You can quickly create large shapes because what it does is it understands the overlap and the fill as making a quick compound shape. So now that's one shape. So that's a single shape. If I do this, that's a single shape. But if they intersect, it becomes I don't know. I think it has to be, I think it follows the line after is what it does. Oh, it's because they're different colors. Okay. My bad. So if I do that, if I do that, that's all one shape. Do that, do that. So it's a really fast way to make complex shapes versus, making individual path lines. Let me show you another cool thing with the blob brush. So now that's one shape. You can delete it. Let me get black fill, the blob brush. So we can control the smoothness of our brush stroke. If you double click the blob brush, you get this menu. And here we have smooth and accurate. So earlier I was talking about line quality, and when you can recognize the shakiness of someone's hand, how that makes a more human-like line quality. So this is super accurate. So if I draw a line, you should be able to see how shaky my hand is to some degree. So you can see there's some variation in that. So if I go Command Y, you can see that it's not perfect. It's a little shaky, so if I go like that, you can see that it's like choppy. It looks like I signed at the ATM machine. But if I go back to that menu and I go smooth, what it does is it'll correct my hand for me. It'll give you much more smooth lines. Ugh, that's ugly. Hang on. Too smooth. I also like this brush because you can quickly change the thickness without having to go into menus, like with the regular brush. So that's really smooth, but if I go back over here, change this to accurate, it's not too bad still. Yeah, you can see that difference there. It's a little choppy in here. Whereas here it made this a nice smooth arc. Command Y for regular mode again. Okay, so that's your brushes. So you have the blob brush and the paintbrush tool, both located in the same menu button. Notice that if I go to my brush history, I have all the different brushes that I used. So if I want to revisit any of those lines, I have those loaded up right here to quickly revisit them.